Hello, everybody. This is Harald Anderson with FeedTheSpiders.com, and welcome to another call where we are going to be talking today with Charles Jacobs. Charles has a very fascinating background. He is actually the owner of retirement-writing.com, and he is the recent author of a fascinating book called The Writer Within You. I met Charles a few months ago at a luncheon and was very fascinated by the things that he was doing, and I invited him here on the call so that he could share with all of our listeners the power of the written word and how important that actually is in expressing yourself, whether it's in the offline or online world. Welcome to the call, Charles.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, Harold.
I want to tell the audience a little bit more about you. I've looked over your website. I'm very impressed with what you've put together. Why don't you give the listeners a little bit more background about who Charles Jacobs actually is?
Well, Charles Jacobs is someone who's come out of the journalism world, primarily newspapers. I began as a reporter on the New York Journal-American to help pay my way through Columbia University. I then went on and finally ended up as the publisher, editor-in-chief, and then publisher of the Alameda Newspaper Group, which is a very large group of newspapers out in the California, San Francisco area. I have also been the editor-in-chief of Focus magazine, a million circulation magazine. I freelanced since I decided to retire from active duty, and I have, according to my agents, placed somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 articles in newspapers and magazines around the country. And I've done some commercial writing, and I have written one novel. Most of my work has been as a ghostwriter, and most of it has been nonfiction when it came to books. However, I had a wonderful time writing my first and only novel called Blood Bond. It's about the relationship of two brothers and their bond together, and hope to go back into fictional writing once I have completed all the activities on the current book.
It's a fascinating background that you bring to the table. It's very impressive that you've had about 750 articles published in some of the most prestigious publications around. So without a doubt, you certainly have the credentials to know about the written word. Now, you have just finished writing a book called The Writer Within You. Tell the readers a little bit about that book and, most importantly, what it was that inspired you to take on such an ambitious project.
I'm delighted to talk about that because it's been an activity that's very dear to my heart. I am a retiree, although I'm very active and continue to write constantly. But in going around and speaking, as I have done many times before organizations, I have found people gather around me after I finish speaking, and particularly middle-aged to older folk, telling me that they have a wonderful, wonderful book to write. They've been dying to write it. And then there's a pause each time, and I hear this sort of plaintive complaint, but I don't know how to do it. And that inspired me to, after hearing it time and time again, to conduct a small informal survey of people who spoke with me and determine exactly what it is they were looking for as a guide or as a help to write it. I also saw that a Gallup poll indicated that there were 81% of all Americans have a book that they want to write. A very wonderful website for seniors and for baby boomers, eons.com, surveyed 14,000 of their subscribers who said that writing a book was their second most cherished life dream. It's kind of funny, but the number one cherished life dream was losing weight.
Oh.
So I decided that there was just no question that there was a need for a book geared to seniors, to retirees, to baby boomers who were about to retire and so forth, since so many seem to want to write a book. And so the actual title of the book is The Writer Within You, but it's subtitled A Step-by-Step Guide to Writing and Publishing in Your Retirement Years. And while the material in there is applicable to a 16-year-old writer or to an 80-year-old writer, the book is particularly geared to seniors. Seniors have an unusual advantage in that they have lengthy life experiences that they can call upon when they write. They have career experiences that they can call upon. And most of all, they have what none of us had while we were in our working years, free time. Mm-hmm. And with that combination, I decided to put together this book, and I tried to put together a book that was based on the actual desires and needs of these folks I spoke with.
Well, that's the fascinating thing to me about your book, in that I also very much believe that the majority of people have a book in them, and I think that most people are naturally capable of expressing themselves. But my own experience has been, and I just wanted to talk about this at the beginning of our discussion, is I found that one of the first hurdles that I had to overcome to be able to write is to just be able to be willing to leave my past history behind. And specifically, I'm referring to the lectures or grades that I received from English teachers, in high school or in college. I just want you to comment on that. How important is that? I'm sure that with your credentials, you have a phenomenal command of the English language, but how much of a stumbling block is that for most people?
Well, I don't think it's a terribly heavy or serious stumbling block. As a matter of fact, I really believe that the most difficult challenge that these folks have expressed to me is they don't understand the publishing world. They feel that perhaps they can write, but how do I get it published? And the world of publishing is somewhat arcane. There are a variety of methodologies to accomplish it, and people who are new to publishing do have to be guided through that. However, genius is something that's inborn, but the ability to write and craft a book or an article is something that can be taught or can be gained from reading and practicing. What it really requires is disciplined practice. You've got to sit down at your computer day after day, and it doesn't have to be a lengthy period of time. Perhaps it's 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning when you're fresh, and you will find that you will self-teach yourself to write, because it is not that difficult. And Harold, you're absolutely right. Discard all the comments from teachers in school, because writing has to come from within you. There's no one out there who can stylize your writing. It's got to be you expressing yourself.
Now, do you find, just out of curiosity, with all the people that approach you after your presentations, are most of the books that people are interested in writing about their own genealogy or their own family history, or is such as their memoirs, or are there other topics that also seem to come to the top of the list?
Well, it's very interesting. Memoirs are very high on the list. People who have had these life experiences want to pass them on to their families, to their children, their grandchildren. Some of them do it out of vanity. Some are motivated by a desire to help and guide. However, in addition to that, there are a surprising number of people who have a fictional book, a novel that they want to write. There are others who are very serious about continuing their involvement with their career, even though they have retired from that career, and they want to write articles for various magazines, trade magazines particularly, that are appropriate for those fields. They also, some of them, are interested in writing a how-to book another very popular category. And the last group has talked very frequently about getting into commercial writing on a part-time basis as a freelancer because of their experience, no matter what their profession or business may have been.
Now, will your book also assist those people, I assume, who are interested in learning how to write fiction as well?
Yes, I've taken and broken down the key genres that people have expressed an interest in. And the book covers the novel, it covers the memoir, it covers how-tos and other non-fiction books like history books, true crime books, and it covers commercial and business writing as well as article writing. And there is a separate chapter, because of the great interest in it, on travel writing. And as you know, the travel industry is heavily, heavily populated by seniors, and as a result, many of them want to write it and tell people about their experiences.
Absolutely. I know my mother is fascinated with travel, and she's also quite eloquent. She's traveled all over the world, and I think she would love nothing more than to be able to sit down and share her travel experiences with others, as I'm sure many other people on this call might as well. So your book basically will hold somebody's hand and give them workable exercises so that they can develop an authentic voice in each of those genres. Is that correct?
If they follow the prescription that we've talked about, they're not formal exercises, but it's a matter of their taking the material that I give them, the guidance that I give them, and follow it. It is adequate to write a novel or a memoir or whatever the category is. Now, I don't profess to be the very final word on each one of these genres. If I were, I would be writing a total book devoted solely to that genre. But that is exactly what I have heard the complaints from seniors about. They don't want to have to go around and read a book on research, read a book on the novel, read a book on how to edit and rewrite, etc. They wanted a single compact volume that can give them the basics and qualify them to write and publish. Now, in addition to that, I have a very extensive appendix that I placed on the back of the book, which gives tested resources if they want to go more deeply into any one of these genres. So there may be 15 books that I recommend on writing the novel and 5 books, say, on memoirs, all sorts of reference materials to help these people expand their knowledge beyond what I've given them.
Mm-hmm.
My concern was motivating them to write and to get off the starting mark and get going.
Sure. And so, in essence, your book will, if someone already feels that they have a foundation for business writing but would like to learn other styles, this would be a wonderful opportunity for them to learn the other styles that they're interested by acquiring and studying your material. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And in addition to that, I do have individual chapters on rewriting, on how to research your book, even on how to set up an office that makes it convenient for you to write so that there are no further stumbling blocks. It's hard enough to write without having other problems facing you.
Now, and I totally agree with that. I find that writing is very, very rewarding, but for me the hardest part is just sometimes confronting the blank page in front of me and just trying to get what's in my mind onto paper and not letting the editor edit while I try to write. Can you give us some just brief pointers of things that you would suggest to someone so that they could begin to express themselves in the written form?
Yes, what I tell every one of my students or anybody that I counsel is when you sit down, don't try and write a literary masterpiece. Put your thoughts on paper in any way that you can express them. Get them on paper, and once you've done that, you'll begin to move. After the first or second paragraph, things will become much more natural and easy as you write. You can always go back and rewrite. Some of the greatest writers in this world have rewritten and rewritten. Ernest Hemingway was famous, for example, for rewriting every one of his pieces perhaps 15, 20 times before, as he commented, they're polished the way a jeweler would polish a gem. Sit down, write. But do your research and your planning first, because if you haven't done those two, and you sit down in front of that blank computer screen, you're going to be frightened. You're going to end up with what they call writer's block. I'm sure many of you, your students and your colleagues have heard that term, which is nothing more than, as far as I'm concerned, an excuse not to write, to go play golf. Writer's block occurs. People can't move forward when they haven't done the planning and the research. Once they've done that, they know what they're writing and they know what they're writing about. It becomes very easy.
Now that's it's a great topic, because I find great rewards from the writing that I have done. It's always nice to receive compliments and acknowledgments from people who've discovered some of the articles that have been published on the internet.
Well, Harold, your publishing is widespread throughout the internet. I have been impressed finding you time and time again on the internet. I have great respect for what you've done.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Charles. Now, but let's discuss, you mentioned a key factor that in any field is very important to achieve success, and that's discipline. For the person who wants to learn how to write, give me some examples of how someone could cultivate that discipline.
Well, I think step number one is to allocate a specific time during the day that you're going to devote to that function, that writing, and follow that. As I've said to many people, particularly retirees, this will not encroach on your golf game, on your time at the beach, reading books, playing cards, whatever you enjoy doing. Take 2 to 3 hours a day, but religiously take them. And if you don't have a set time, it's not going to happen. Know that at 9 o'clock in the morning, you begin and perhaps work till lunch, and then the afternoon is free. But don't vary your time. Stick to that schedule. I get up at 5:30 every morning, and I write until breakfast time when my wife has arisen and we have breakfast together. Then I go back and I continue writing. But it's religiously done early every morning, because that is the only way you're ever going to get to the point where you put the end at whatever you've tackled.
That's great advice. And the other aspect that I'd just like to piggyback on that comment is, as I tell all of my students, the internet is still very much, as writing pertains to the internet, very much a text-based medium. And the more that you are capable of writing or getting other people to write for you, the higher the probability that people will stumble across one of your links to come to learn more about you, your product, your services, or whatever it is that you're involved with. Now, one of the sections of your book is actually about becoming a freelancer, and you have done quite a bit of that in your career. Could you just briefly talk about how that might pertain to someone, whether they're a youngster entering college or a retiree? What advice do you give in the book related to becoming a freelancer?
Well, becoming a freelancer simply means that you are not working for an individual company. You're working for yourself, and you are distributing what you write to different publications. My advice is don't try and write, if you're a sports fanatic, don't try and write for Sports Illustrated right off the bat. Begin with your local newspaper, your weekly newspaper. Begin with rather modest sports magazines and work your way up. What you need are credentials, and credentials in writing are articles that you can show and bring to any editor and prove that you have an ability to write. Just talking about your capabilities is not going to satisfy an editor. So begin small. Even after years of experience as a newspaperman and a magazine editor, I was not a writer involved in the world of freelancing. My writing had been basically ghostwriting books for others because I felt I couldn't write my own books while I was the publisher or editor of a major newspaper. I felt it was a conflict. So I began, surprisingly enough, in order to build a portfolio, I began with little community newspapers near my home in New Jersey. And for $25 a pop on an article. And I worked my way up to the point where today I command a very substantial price on an article. But start small is what I'm saying. Don't get these grandiose ideas, and take a subject that you're interested in, do some research to bone up and get up to speed on it, and then sit down and write an article and send it off to a small publication.
That's wonderful advice, and it's advice that anybody who's listening to this call could easily act on and find that new income streams become available to them if they just decide to take action in that regard. Now, how long did it take you to actually complete this project, The Writer Within You?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer because I think part of the job of completing it was also researching it and talking to these folks and getting their input. But the actual formal writing, I would say, took me about 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
With researching.
What was the most difficult part of putting the entire project together for you?
In all honesty, it was great fun. There was nothing that was terribly hard.
Wow.
It was just wonderful fun. And it just sort of grew together because I had done my planning. I knew what I wanted to do based on what I had learned from all of these seniors, what they needed. And therefore, I just proceeded step by step to make it a logical transition from one aspect of the book to another. And none of it was really very difficult, Harold, I must confess.
And so what are some of the future projects that you're looking at? Are we looking at possibly a sequel, The Writer Within You Part 2?
If this is as popular as indications are from many in the field already, among seniors, as I hope it will be, I then probably will rewrite the book and not target it so directly to seniors, but make it a more general book for writers, beginning writers of all ages. And I will also update, naturally, with changes that have occurred in the digital world and in the publishing world and so forth. I also am very, very eager to tackle another novel. I have 2 or 3 ideas that I have been mulling over in my mind while I've been working on this one and on this book. And I enjoyed writing the novel so much that I think I will probably take that step the next time.
Well, that sounds very exciting, Charles. Where can people learn more about you, and how would they go about acquiring this wonderful book, The Writer Within You, that you have just published?
Well, I'm glad you asked me. First of all, let me give you my website, because the website, as you know better than anyone else, is really the base of everything that you do in the writing world. I am at www.retirement-writing.com. www.retirement-writing.com. And if you go to my blog, which has every week an update of an article called Charlie's Choices, which is an instructional article in some aspect of writing or publishing or promoting your book, you just put a /blog on the end of my website, and you can go directly to the blog, or you can go to the navigation bar on the website to get to the blog. And anyone can pick up a telephone, dial 1-800-BOOK-LOG, L-O-G, 1-800-BOOK-LOG, and the publishing house will take your order.
Wonderful. So as a quick review, people can learn more about you at retirement-writing.com. And if they want to go to your blog, they would just put a /blog and get your weekly article. And to order your book, they basically would just dial 1-800-BOOK-LOG and request for The Writer Within You by Charles Jacobs. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. It's as easy as that. And
well, it sounds like a wonderful book that certainly is going to help a lot of people's lives. It's been a pleasure having you on the phone call today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share this information with my subscribers. And I wish you the best of success with the book, and hopefully by the end of the year I'd love to have you back on to share how your launch actually worked out and what you actually learned after several months after publication. How does that sound?
Well, it sounds wonderful to me, Harold, because I love talking to you. As you indicated earlier, we met all by chance at a luncheon, and I have followed your work and followed you very closely ever since then, because I was so impressed, and I have learned an awful lot from you, and I recommend you strongly in my book and have recommended you on my blog, because I think your knowledge, particularly of the digital world, is just remarkable. And
well,
I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Charles. It's very nice of you to say. I'm really looking forward to studying your book, and I'm applying it so that someday I can have a published novel as well. That's one of my goals in life as well, and I'd love to talk with you in greater detail about that.
Love to.
So thank you for spending the time. This is Harald Anderson from feedthespeakers.com. Thank you for joining us. And once again, the book is The Writer Within You by Charles Jacobs, and you can pick that up at 1-800-BOOK-LOG. Just dial 1-800-BOOK-LOG. And this is a book that will help you with your writing, and it's incredibly important for you to be able to express yourself in text, audio, and video if you're going to get your message out into the world. Thanks for joining us.